Welcome back to the Stoic Master. Most guys lose the game before it even starts, because they text like amateurs. But texting isn't about emojis or being clever, it's about emotional tension, timing, and masculine control. Don't over-communicate. Build tension with restraint. This is the cornerstone of powerful texting, and yet it's where most men go wrong. In an age of instant gratification, men feel the urge to constantly respond, to keep the conversation going at all costs, as if silence means something is wrong. But for the masculine man, silence is not a threat, it's a weapon. When you text too often, too quickly, or with too much eagerness, you remove the one thing that keeps a woman emotionally invested: mystery. She knows what you're doing, where you are, what you're thinking. There's no room left for imagination, and when imagination dies, so does the spark. Women are emotional creatures. They're drawn to what's uncertain, to what keeps their emotions fluctuating in a subtle dance of curiosity and intrigue. When you text her constantly, you flatten that curve. She knows she has you. You've given away your emotional positioning. And whether she realizes it or not, her attraction will begin to fade, not because you're not a good man, but because you've made yourself too available, too accessible, too easy. Easy is boring. Easy is forgettable. What she can't quite figure out is what she can't stop thinking about. That's the psychology behind restraint. Now, restraint isn't about being cold or playing childish games. It's about holding frame. A man of value has things to do. He doesn't live on his phone. He doesn't chase validation through a typing bubble. When a man texts with intention, when he's brief, confident, and detached, he communicates something far more powerful than words. He communicates that he's grounded, that he's centered, and that he won't be pulled off his path for a fleeting conversation. And that energy, that's what women feel on the other side of the screen. That's what makes them double check their phones. That's what keeps them engaged, even in silence. This is why timing is everything. Don't text her the second she texts you. Don't send 3 follow-ups if she hasn't replied in an hour. Let the silence sit. Let the tension build. Let her wonder if you're thinking about her or not. Let her feel that subtle anxiety of not knowing, because that's what creates emotional charge. That's what keeps you in her mind long after the message has been read. Also, the way you phrase things matters. Be direct. Be calm. Be minimal. The man who sends long paragraphs filled with emotional oversharing communicates instability. The man who sends a short, clever message and then goes silent communicates mystery. One makes her feel emotionally burdened. The other makes her feel emotionally pulled. You want to be the man who leaves room for her imagination to run wild, to wonder about your day, your life, your priorities. Not because you're hiding, but because you're living. And she's being given glimpses, not full access. Texting is not a conversation. It's a dance. And in that dance, you lead with subtlety, not desperation. You create space, not noise. You draw her in with curiosity, not validation. Seeking, text less, mean more. Be the man who doesn't need to say much, because his energy, his restraint, and his presence say it all. Use emotional triggers, not logical statements. This is the difference between a woman feeling bored when she reads your message and her feeling a jolt of energy, curiosity, or even butterflies. Most men text in a way that satisfies their own sense of politeness or routine. How was your day? What are you up to? Did you sleep well? These are polite, well-meaning questions, but they're emotionally flat. They don't spark anything. They don't provoke a reaction. And because they feel like something she's heard 100 times before, They blend into the background like static. A woman doesn't want to feel like she's stuck in a job interview. She wants to feel something. Whether it's excitement, laughter, curiosity, or even the slight thrill of being teased, emotion is the bridge between attention and attraction. When you use emotional triggers, you speak in a language she actually responds to. This doesn't mean manipulation or games. It means learning how to craft messages that light up her emotional brain, not just a rational one. Instead of asking, "How was your day?" you could say something like, "Let me guess. You caused some kind of chaos today, didn't you?" Now you've got her smiling, maybe even laughing. You've created an image in her mind. You've made her feel seen in a playful, mysterious way. That emotional shift, that little spark of energy, is what makes you stand out. Women don't fall for what's logical. They fall for what's felt. They want to be surprised, teased, and mentally stimulated. When you use emotionally loaded phrases, metaphors, playful accusations, or subtle inside jokes, you take her out of her head and into the moment. You create a sense of intimacy without needing a long history. You stir something inside her that's connected to energy, not words. And the more you can master this emotional language, the more she will look forward to hearing from you, even if it's just one sentence. Tone also matters. If you're too serious, too literal, or too emotionally dry, she'll feel like she's texting a robot. But if you inject curiosity, challenge, and spontaneity into your words, she'll be emotionally hooked without even knowing why. For example, instead of "I saw a dog today that reminded me of you," say, "This dog looked like it owned the entire street, had your energy written all over it." Now you've added play, compliment, and a hint of personal insight. You're connecting emotionally while still staying in control of the tone. This kind of messaging requires presence. You have to actually observe, feel, and respond in real time, not with canned lines, but with a mindset that constantly seeks to connect emotionally, not logically. When you're texting her, think, what emotion am I triggering? Am I making her laugh, smile, blush, feel seen, feel challenged? If the answer is no, then you're just giving her information, and information doesn't build attraction. Another key part of emotional texting is unpredictability. Routine kills romance. If she always knows what's coming next, she stops engaging fully. But if you occasionally flip the script, send something unexpected, like a voice note that teases her tone, or a single cryptic message that references something from a past conversation, her emotional curiosity is reignited. She feels like she's part of something unique, not just another girl in your contact list. And that emotional exclusivity is powerful. It makes her feel chosen, even without you saying it directly. So don't try to impress her with facts. Don't try to win her over with long messages that explain yourself. Speak to her emotions, stir her instincts, make her feel something that lingers after the phone is put down. Because when a woman associates emotion with your presence, even through a screen, you become unforgettable. Not because of what you said, but because of how you made her feel. Delayed replies show emotional control. Most men are so afraid of losing a woman's interest that they cling to constant availability, thinking that fast replies equal high value. But in truth, the opposite is often more effective. When you respond instantly to every message, you signal that you have nothing else going on, that your time is easily accessible, and that your attention is already hers without her having to earn it. That dynamic instantly kills attraction. It removes the sense of pursuit, of challenge, of curiosity. There is no space for her to wonder about you, to miss you, to fantasize about where you are or what you're doing. And what kills desire faster than anything is predictability. If she knows exactly when you'll reply and exactly what you'll say, you've become emotionally obvious, and emotionally obvious men do not capture a woman's mind. Delayed response isn't about playing games or being rude, it's about reclaiming your value as a man. A man who moves with purpose, who is focused on his mission, who doesn't drop everything the moment his phone buzzes, naturally becomes more attractive. His attention is not something that's given away freely. It's earned, and that subtle energy shift changes the entire tone of the interaction. She senses that you're not in a rush, you're not trying to impress, you're not glued to your phone, and that subtle emotional restraint creates space. Space where tension builds, space where her curiosity grows, space where she begins to feel something that's increasingly rare in modern interactions: anticipation. Anticipation is a drug. When a woman doesn't know when you'll reply, when she's checking her phone and wondering what's taking you so long, her emotions begin to activate. She starts thinking about you more, not less. She starts rereading your previous messages, searching for meaning, trying to interpret what you meant or why you went silent. This mental engagement is exactly what keeps her drawn in. You've created a psychological loop where she's not just reacting to your presence, she's reacting to your absence. And when your absence creates more emotional weight than another man's presence, you've already won. It's not just the delay, it's how you carry yourself when you do reply. Are you calm, composed, and self-assured? Or are you apologetic and needy, explaining why you didn't answer sooner? A man in his masculine frame doesn't explain. He simply responds when it fits into his life. His words are deliberate. He's not rushing to continue the conversation because he doesn't fear losing it. This unbothered energy is magnetic. It suggests to her that you have options, that you have standards, and that your attention isn't given out of desperation, but discernment. What you're really doing with delayed replies is creating an emotional rhythm. Just like a good song needs moments of pause, silence, and build-up to hit harder, so does a conversation. If you're constantly flooding her with messages, there's no rhythm, no depth, no build. But when you pull back, let time pass, and re-enter the conversation on your terms, your words carry more weight. She leans in a little closer. She pays more attention. Your silence becomes just as powerful, if not more so, than your words. Also, consider the timing of your responses. If she sends you a playful message late at night, and you respond immediately, you might think you're being charming. But what if you waited until the morning? Now your message hits differently. She wakes up thinking about you. She reads it with a fresh emotional context. She wonders what you were doing the night before and why you didn't respond right away. That one simple pause shifts the emotional tone and deepens her engagement. The key is to be intentional, not reactive. Most men are reactive. They see a message, they feel a spike of dopamine, and they respond. That's impulsive behavior, and it shows a lack of emotional control. A high-value man doesn't operate from impulse. He operates from principle. He chooses when to engage, and when he does, it's not because he's craving connection, but because it aligns with his values and schedule. That discipline shows up in everything, not just in your texting, but in how she perceives your presence, your time, and your self-worth. When you master the art of delayed replies, you send a silent but powerful message. I'm not in a rush, and I'm not emotionally dependent on this conversation. You signal that your attention is precious, that your life is full, and that you will not be pulled off course by the temporary excitement of a few messages. You create an emotional gap that she feels, and in that gap attraction grows. Because at the core of every woman's desire is the pull toward a man who is centered, focused, and unshakable. Not the man who texts too fast, but the man whose silence speaks louder than words. End conversations first. This single move, though subtle, shifts the entire dynamic of power and attraction in your favor. Most men, when they're texting a woman they're interested in, fall into the habit of dragging the conversation out. They're afraid that if they end it, the moment will be lost, or she'll lose interest, or worse, start texting someone else. So they keep the messages going, they ask another question, they drop another compliment. They keep responding, even when the energy of the interaction is clearly winding down, and in doing so, they lose the edge that keeps her emotionally engaged. Women are extremely intuitive when it comes to attention. They can sense when a man is trying too hard to hold on. They can feel when the conversation is being prolonged out of fear of losing them, and once that dynamic is exposed, her attraction starts to wane. She might not even know why. It's not always conscious, but on a deeper level, she begins to sense that this man is not in control of his own emotions, that he's not grounded, that he needs something from her. And neediness is the death of desire. Now contrast that with a man who ends the conversation while it's still warm. He knows the interaction has value, but he doesn't cling to it. He walks away while things are still playful, engaging, or even flirty. He leaves before it gets boring, before the replies get shorter, before the emotional energy flattens. And in doing so, he accomplishes something most men never do. He creates the experience of emotional interruption. When a woman is enjoying herself, and you suddenly say, "All right, I've got to go handle a few things. We'll pick this up later," you leave her in a suspended state. She's still emotionally elevated, still smiling, still engaged. But now the energy has nowhere to go. It sits, it lingers, and that lingering emotion is what draws her back to you. She's left wanting more, and that more is what keeps her thinking about you long after the chat ends. Ending the conversation first is also a display of leadership. It shows that you're in control of your time, your schedule, and your emotional state. You're not hanging around waiting for her to signal that the conversation is over. You decide. You don't need her attention to feel validated. You're engaged, present, but also perfectly willing to shift your focus elsewhere. And when a man shows that level of decisiveness, it makes a woman feel both challenged and secure. Challenged because she's not fully sure she has you. Secure because she senses you're not emotionally volatile or desperate. It's important how you end it, too. You don't want to disappear abruptly or seem cold. You want to leave with charisma, a spark of mystery, or even a tease. Instead of saying good night, you say, "All right, I've got to disappear for a bit. Try not to miss me too much." That line is playful, a little cocky, and leaves the door open for future interaction. It ends the conversation, but it doesn't close the emotional loop. She'll smile, maybe roll her eyes, but deep down, she'll be thinking about you. Because you ended it on your terms, with charm and confidence. This technique also demonstrates that you're not emotionally addicted to constant communication. In today's world, people are tethered to their phones, addicted to instant replies, and desperate to keep digital connections alive 24/7. But a man who can step away, who can pause the interaction without fear or attachment, radiates strength. He's not emotionally dependent on anyone's response. He controls the tempo, and women are deeply responsive to men who control the tempo of interactions, not in a forceful or manipulative way, but with calm, unshakable authority. And let's not overlook how this subtly conditions her behavior. When you end conversations at high points, she begins to associate you with positive emotional spikes. Every time she talks to you, the experience ends on a high note. Over time, she craves that energy. She begins to look forward to hearing from you because she knows it's going to feel good, but she never knows when it will end. That uncertainty, paired with the memory of positive emotional closure, creates anticipation. And anticipation is where obsession starts to form. There's also a psychological principle at play here called the Zeigarnik effect. It states that people remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones. In the context of texting, when you end the conversation while it still has momentum, it becomes an unfinished emotional task in her mind. She's left wondering where it was going. She's left with unanswered questions, or simply an emotional high with no resolution. That mental loop stays open, and you become a recurring thought in her mind, not because you were always there, but because you knew when to step away. So instead of dragging out the interaction and hoping to squeeze out more attention, recognize the moment when the energy is peaking. That's your cue. That's when you pull away, not with coldness, but with confidence. When you end conversations first, and do it with timing and charm, you subtly take control of the emotional rhythm. And once you control the rhythm, you control how she experiences you. Tease with purpose, not desperation. Teasing is one of the most powerful tools you can use in texting, but it's also one of the most misunderstood. Most men either avoid teasing altogether out of fear of offending the woman or go too far, coming off as immature, insecure, or trying too hard to impress. But when used correctly, teasing is the gateway to playful dominance. It's how you spark attraction, build sexual tension, and establish yourself as someone who isn't intimidated by her beauty, status, or words. Teasing done with control and purpose demonstrates confidence. It shows that you're comfortable pushing boundaries, that you don't worship her, and that you're not afraid to stir her emotions a little. And that emotional friction is what creates the spark. The essence of teasing is in the delivery. It's not about being mean or sarcastic, just for the sake of it. That kind of teasing is rooted in insecurity. When a man mocks a woman in a way that feels bitter or defensive, she doesn't feel excited. She feels repelled. True teasing, on the other hand, is like a dance. It's light, it's playful, it's laced with flirtation, but grounded in emotional awareness. When you tease a woman properly, you're not attacking her. You're pulling her into your frame. You're challenging her while making her laugh. You're showing that you see her clearly, but aren't completely swayed by her charms. For example, let's say she tells you she went to the gym. Instead of saying something dry like "nice, good job," you could say, "Oh, so you're trying to impress me now, huh?" That one line flips the frame. You've taken her statement and turned it into a flirtatious challenge. She now has to respond in a playful way. You've subtly taken control of the interaction, and you've injected it with emotional energy. Or if she sends a selfie, instead of immediately validating her by saying you look beautiful, you can say, 7, 9 out of 10, you're slipping. Now, obviously she knows she looks good, but your teasing keeps her grounded. It prevents her from feeling too powerful in the interaction. It creates a small, safe imbalance that's incredibly attractive when done right. Purposeful teasing also builds rapport. When you tease someone, you create inside jokes. You form shared language. You give her something emotionally unique to your connection. Over time, these playful moments become anchors. She'll remember the little nicknames you gave her, the fake accusations, the exaggerated sarcasm. All of these are emotional hooks. They're not about facts. They're about feelings, and feelings are what women chase. If every time she gets a message from you, she doesn't know whether she's about to laugh, be challenged, or be seduced, she stays fully engaged. Her brain starts associating your presence with emotional highs. But here's where purpose comes in. Teasing isn't about entertaining her non-stop. It's about reinforcing your frame. If she says something that's clearly a test, like fishing for compliments or being a bit cocky, you can tease her in a way that both acknowledges it and neutralizes it. For instance, if she says, "I bet you talk to a lot of girls," instead of getting defensive or over-explaining, you respond with, "Only the ones that can keep up with me." That line is a tease, but it's also a message. You're letting her know that she's not in the driver's seat just because she's attractive. You're reminding her, without needing to say it outright, that you're a man with options and standards. This kind of teasing also reveals that you don't take everything too seriously. So many men fall into the trap of becoming overly formal, trying to say the perfect thing or filtering themselves to appear safe. But safe is boring. Safe gets put in the friend zone. Teasing, when done with charm and subtlety, bypasses all of that. It shows that you're willing to take emotional risks, that you're playful, present, and alive. And that's intoxicating to a woman who is used to robotic, overly polite, or hyperlogical texts. Also, teasing builds sexual polarity. When you flirt in a bold, playful way, you're signaling masculine energy. You're not trying to be agreeable. You're trying to create spark, and that spark often comes from contrast, from a little bit of tension, from the unpredictability of not knowing what you'll say next. And while that tension must be calibrated, it's essential for keeping her emotionally stimulated. A little unpredictability keeps her on her toes. It keeps the emotional pendulum swinging, and when a woman feels emotionally stimulated, she naturally wants to engage more. She becomes more invested, more curious, more drawn in. What's critical is knowing when to pull back. Teasing is most effective when it's balanced with genuine presence. You can't tease all the time or it becomes exhausting. The goal isn't to turn every message into a joke, it's to make the interaction feel alive. To make her feel seen in a way that's different from every other guy who's just showering her with compliments or asking bland questions. Teasing with purpose is about rhythm. It's about knowing when to lean in and when to give space, when to push her buttons and when to reassure her subtly through your consistency and calmness. A man who knows how to tease well, who uses it not from a place of insecurity, but from grounded confidence, becomes magnetic. His words carry a different energy. His presence through the screen feels like a real experience. And in a world where most conversations are flat and forgettable, that kind of playful emotional tension is irresistible. It leaves a mark. It makes her think about you when she's alone. It makes her look forward to your texts, not because of what you said, but because of how you made her feel when you said it. Use voice notes strategically. In a world flooded with dry texts, lifeless emojis, and copy-paste conversations, voice notes cut through the noise like a knife. They introduce something most men forget to use in digital communication: your actual presence. Your tone, your cadence, your confidence, and most importantly, your energy. A well-timed voice note isn't just a message. It's an experience. It makes you feel real. It makes her stop scrolling. It creates a moment of intimacy that words on a screen simply can't match. While everyone else is stuck in the gray zone of typed replies, a voice note adds color, depth, and personality. The moment she hears your voice, everything changes. Your voice carries subtext. If you're calm, grounded, and speak with clarity, she feels it. If you're playful, teasing, or slightly flirty, that emotion seeps into her mind far more powerfully than if you typed the same thing. This is especially important because women are incredibly responsive to emotional tone. They pick up on subtleties, the slight smirk in your voice, the teasing pause before a punchline, the warmth in your tone when you say something sincere. Text can only suggest these things. Voice conveys them directly. And the psychological impact of hearing your voice, especially when she's used to dealing with men who only text, is massive. But it's not just about using voice notes. It's about when and how you use them. If you flood her with long, rambling voice messages, you'll come off as overeager or lacking self-awareness. That's the fastest way to lose the power of this tool. But if you use them selectively, dropping a 10 to 30-second note in between a series of text replies, you instantly elevate the interaction. She pauses whatever she's doing to listen. She leans in. She hears the confidence in your voice. And that voice stays with her. Long after the message ends, your energy lingers in her head. She replays it, even if she doesn't admit it. She imagines the kind of man who sounds like that. She associates your voice with presence, with authority, with mystery. Voice notes are especially effective after you've built a bit of momentum in the conversation. Instead of texting something like "your trouble, aren't you?" you say it. You say it with a low, amused tone, maybe with a chuckle. Now that phrase goes from being a harmless sentence to a flirtatious tease. It becomes charged. It makes her react emotionally, and that's the key: emotional stimulation. Most men try to impress women with logic, facts, or polite approval. But women fall for men who make them feel asterisk. A voice note that makes her smile, makes her laugh, makes her curious. Those are moments that build attraction far deeper than another well-crafted paragraph ever could. Another strategic time to use voice notes is when a text exchange starts to feel routine. You've been texting for a while and things are going well, but maybe the rhythm is slowing. That's your moment. Instead of continuing the same pattern, you disrupt it. You send a quick voice note with something playful, personal, or intriguing. You might say, "Okay, you just said that like someone who knows she's dangerous." Or, "You're getting way too confident now. I like it." These aren't just statements. They're invitations. Invitations to play, to feel, to engage on a deeper level. And because you said them with your voice, she hears not just the words, but the attitude behind them. That nuance makes all the difference. Voice notes also allow you to create a private world. When she listens to you while she's alone, maybe in bed, on a walk, or during a break, there's a sense of closeness that starts to form. She begins to associate your voice with calm, with connection, with chemistry. You become a part of her environment, and this is where intimacy is built, not through length, but through layers. Each voice note becomes another layer of emotional familiarity, and as that builds, her emotional investment deepens. You're not just a name on a screen, you're a presence in her mind. Even silence within a voice note can be powerful. A slight pause before you say something cheeky, a drawn-out word that adds emphasis, a sigh that sounds amused or teasing. These small audio cues make her feel like she's right there with you, like the two of you are sharing a private moment, even if you're miles apart. And that shared feeling of being seen, teased, desired through sound, is what keeps her craving more. But the ultimate power of voice notes lies in what they suggest about you. A man who's comfortable sending a voice message is a man who isn't hiding. He's confident enough to let his energy be felt. He's not trying to overthink every word. He's present, he's expressive, and he's bold enough to bring some realness into a conversation that most men keep surface level. That kind of man stands out. That kind of man becomes unforgettable. And here's the truth. Most guys don't use voice notes at all, and the few who do often misuse them. So when you do it right, you immediately separate yourself from the crowd. You become the man who's not just texting, you're impacting her senses. She's not just reading your message, she's hearing your mood, feeling your tone, getting a taste of your masculine presence. You shift the entire dynamic from logic to emotion, from routine to chemistry, from casual to memorable. So when you master these texting secrets, knowing when to tease, when to pull back, how to use your voice, and how to create emotional rhythm, you stop being just another guy in her inbox. You become the man who makes her smile at her phone, the one she thinks about unexpectedly, the one she can't help but want more of. Because in a world full of men trying too hard to get her attention, you stand out by understanding how to hold it asterisk. And that, above all, is what keeps you unforgettable in her mind.